So this is the beginning of a new chapter. This is chapter 5, and we're going to start with 5.1. And the name of this section is called Multiplication with Exponents and Scientific Notation. Alright, so let's kind of get an idea of the whole exponent thing. If you remember right, something that's written like 4 squared means this number here means how many times we multiply the base number, or 4 times itself. If this were a 3, 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, so that would be 64, and this would be 16. Okay, if we had 4 to the 4th power, okay, and it just goes on and on and on. Whichever number that base is, that means we take it, whoops, that's not 128, it's 256. Okay, so we can take any number and we can put it to a power, and all that means is the base numbers times itself that many times. Alright, we can also take this number, and if we want to make it an exponential form, we just say what number times itself gives me 8. Well, 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. And this is just kind of, you memorize some of these. Is there a number I can multiply it by itself a certain number of times to give me this number back? And we'll get into how all that works later. But right now, I'm just concerned with you understanding what the exponent is. Now, there will be some of you that when you see this, you will go 2 to the 3rd equals 2 times 3 is 6. Well, if that meant 2 times 3 is 6, then I would write it 2 times 3 equals 6. I wouldn't write it with an exponent up there. So there's got to be a difference between what we did here and what we did here to get 8. All right, but every semester students will do that, so don't be the student that does that, because that'll mess you up. Alright, so just an example of an exponent. Let's look at example 1, and we're going to look at b, negative 3 to the 4th. What does that mean? That means that the number is taken by itself 4 times, and we get 81, and then we put the negative on there. Alright, one thing that's really important is the negative is not part of this. This is just 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and then we take the opposite of that answer. Now, let's look at a different one. Because this 2 and the negative are in the parentheses, this 4 is saying everything in the parentheses is taken by itself. So now the negative is part of it, because the negative is in the parentheses saying that all of this is to the 4th power. Now up here there are no parentheses, so it's just the 3 and then we throw the negative on. Okay, so that's the difference between these two. The one with the parentheses we multiply by the negative, and if you remember, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, an even number of negatives, so our answer is going to be positive. And then we've got 2, 4, 8, 16. So we get positive 16 there. Okay? When we have something like negative 3/4 squared, again, everything in the parentheses is squared. So the negative is squared, a negative times a negative is a positive, the 3 is squared, and the 4 is squared. All right? So when you have parentheses like that, everything in the parentheses is taken to this power. Okay, so if I had something like 2/3 to the 3rd power, and I had a negative there, well, a negative 3 times, which is an odd number of times, will give me a negative. Okay, whenever we have an odd number of negatives, like an odd number up here, the answer is negative. If it's an even, like it was up here, it's going to be positive. Now we take the 2 times itself 3 times, and the 3 times itself. So that gives me negative 8 over 27. Okay? Alright, so let's look at doing some different stuff with these exponents. And once you get the hang of it, most people don't mind exponents. It's not like fractions or something where they're just like, I can't do them. So, when we are multiplying exponents, like that, All right, in order to multiply these, the base number has to be the same. We cannot combine these unless these are both the same number. And when they are, we just write the base as it is. This never changes. And we add those and get 2 to the 7th power. Because what we've got is 2 times 2 times 2, okay, 2 cubed, times, because that's what we're doing, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. How many do we have there? We have 7. So rather than going through all of this, we just add the 3 and the 4 together to get 7. All right? So it's just a lot of remembering stuff. Okay, so let's look at 7 to the 4th times 7 squared. That gives me 7 to the 4 plus 2 equals 7 to the 6th power. Okay? All right, let's keep going here. Doesn't get any harder. There's just a lot there to remember. All right, so property 1, top of page 312, says, if A is any real number and R and S are integers. All right, so in other words, to multiply two expressions with the same base, we add the exponents and leave the base. That's what we do. All right, so we've done lots of these. Example 2 is just, let's look at C because we've done some of the other ones. Some like it. So base stays the same. We just add the exponents. We're done. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, so let's jump down to what is called the power rule. Okay, so it's a different type of exponents. This time what I'm going to do, all right, this is what we have been doing. And our base is the same and we add the exponents. Sometimes you'll get something like this. Okay, that means 5 cubed twice. So this is what it looks like. 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, that's 5 cubed. And how many times do we have it? Twice. So we have 5 to what power? How many 5s do we have? We have 6. Okay, so in other words, when we have the power, like 5 cubed in parentheses squared, we go 5. How would we get 6? By taking 3 times 2. Okay? So when they're side by side like this, we add the exponents. When we have a 5 cubed, we have a parenthesis, and then we have another exponent here. The exponents are next to each other like that, with a parenthesis in between. We always multiply those. Okay, that's really all there is to that. It's just remembering, do I add these or do I multiply them? So let's look at a couple of examples here. X cubed to the 5th power. Two exponents side by side. Whenever we have exponents side by side, we multiply. And the base stays the same. When we have x to the 4th cubed, x squared to the 5th. Okay, side by side we multiply. Side by side we multiply. Now, notice what I have. Same bases. These are not side by side. There's a number here, a base number, in between an x. So that means we add. And that's my final answer. So when I multiply x to the 4th cubed times x squared to the 5th, I get this. So I do the parenthesis here first, get 12. Parenthesis here, 10. Now they're not side by side. There's something in between them, so that means we add. And we get x to the 22. So don't leave it like this. Give me x to the 22 here. All right, so those are the two basic rules when it comes to multiplication. The third rule is if you have 3y and it's squared. What that means is everything inside the parenthesis is squared. So when we take the parenthesis off, we apply that 2, that exponent of 2, to everything. What is 3 squared? 9. What is y squared? I have no idea, so you leave it. Okay, so any letter, you just leave it as is. Numbers, you go ahead and do the exponent. What if I have something crazy like 1/4 x squared y cubed squared? So what does that mean? That means each number is squared and each letter is squared. So let's go ahead and write that out, not just do it in our head. Negative 1/4. Okay, notice this negative is in the parenthesis with the 1/4, so it's squared. Okay, the x squared, we'll just put everything, we'll leave everything in their own parentheses since they were in the parentheses there, square. And our y cubed squared. So what did I do? I took this 2 and put it on the numbers, the letter, and the letter, and I get this. Alright, so let's go ahead and simplify it. Remember what I said, when we square something in parentheses, everything gets squared. A negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 1, 4 times 4. X squared squared, there is nothing in between here, so I multiply. Y, nothing in between there, and I get that. And that's my answer. Okay, nothing really crazy. Okay, this is example 4C, so let's go ahead and do that. Now remember, parentheses, an exponent. This exponent applies to both of those. This exponent applies to both of those. So I'm going to leave all my parentheses. I'm going to leave this in its own parenthesis, this one in its own parenthesis, this one and this one. And I end up with x squared cubed, y to the 5th cubed, x to the 4th squared, and y squared. Okay, so all I did was split these up into their own parenthesis, squared cubed, like here, squared cubed. Now I'm going to multiply those since they're side by side. Multiply those. Multiply those, and 2, and well, I should just, there's a 1 right here, so 1 times 2 is 2. Now what do I have? I've got a whole bunch of stuff here, so let's go ahead and put my x's together, and my y's. Now what do I do here? I add those, because I have x's that are the same. Those are the only 2 that have the bases the same, so I can add those. These here have the y's that are the same, and I get that. I cannot add this to the x's. You can't combine the x's and the y's, so you're kind of left with that, and that's your final answer. Okay, so that's it for multiplication with exponents. Next video, we're going to do scientific notation.